Okay, YouTubers, this is the Angryprepper. So today's episode, we're going to talk about the dark side of the lockdowns. Now, I know I've said this before. You guys know some of my videos I talked about future lockdowns happening. As of right now, the president said that there's going to be no further lockdowns, but I'm calling bullshit on it just because of the narrative they're spreading about other things. The Delta variant, the Lambda variant, and the new one from Colombia. New York City said that they weren't going to allow lockdowns, and this is why they implemented that vaccine mandate for indoor activities. So, nonetheless, guys, they are starting to talk about another lockdown. Came from some kind of White House official saying that they were talking about options. So it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but the simple fact that they're talking about it means that it's there. The option is there. So if the option is there, we still need to get ready for it. But I wanted to talk about the darker side of lockdowns, which we saw last year and the problems it caused. So one of the major problems was mental health. Mental health, guys, a lot of people took a beating with mental health, referring to the COVID virus and the lockdowns, right? So before the lockdowns began, people were already feeling anxious, depressed because of what was going on. And then we entered the lockdown, and that made matters worse for a lot of people. Now, me personally, I was fine through the whole thing. I still am fine because I'm not surprised at what's going on. I'm not surprised what's going to happen, and I'm not surprised at all the bullshit and the flip-flopping. Not at all. So therefore, I saw this coming, and a lot of us saw this coming. It's probably why we're not bothered by this. But this is not about us. This is about people who we have to watch who are bothered by this. So for many people that started suffering, or their mental health started being affected, was the fact that they were isolated. Now, there were people who were isolated because they lived by themselves. There were people who were isolated because, like kids, for example, they hung out with their friends every day at school. Now they're not hanging out with their friends. They're not seeing their friends. So now, even though they're at home with their mother, their father, and their sister, they feel isolated in a way because they can't get in contact with their friends. They're not getting contact, but they can't go see their friends. Now, that's what Zoom and video games and all that shit was for, at least I thought. But the suicide rate of kids during the lockdown went up. The suicide attempts went up as well. So apparently lockdowns are bad, and we know that because we've read those stories and we've seen the outcome for a lot of people. And people developed a lot of anxiety, guys, because of being locked down. Now, the other bad side of it was, for example, last year, 2020, Christmas time, parents were telling their kids that they didn't want them to come home for the holidays because of COVID. So now if your kid killed themselves because you didn't want your kid to come home because you were being a coward, well, that's a problem. Before telling your kids they can't come home, you have to think about their mental health. It's not just about you, it's also about them. And I would absolutely take my chances with catching COVID so that my kids can come home and hang out with us for the holiday. Because the holiday, guys, suicide rates go up on its own before COVID. Now you have COVID in the mix. Suicide rates skyrocketed during the holiday season. So again, guys, there's always an uptick in suicide during Christmas season, but during COVID Christmas, it jumped up quite a bit. So the psychological distress became a big thing here in the United States during COVID. Anxiety and depression went up as well. So did anger, right? So those three went up. People were complaining that they felt depressed because they were alone. People developed anxiety because they didn't want to die, and they were scared about what was going to happen next because they were unsure what was going to happen next. So they developed anxiety. So now you have people with legit anxiety attacks for some shit that there was no reason to have anxiety. But nonetheless, that's neither here or there. People develop these real symptoms, these real issues, and now they have to work through them. Some people are being medicated right now. Some people are getting over it. But nonetheless, guys, this was a real thing that developed in this country because of the lockdowns. So, according to the CDC, 42% of Americans have reported depression and anxiety. That's up 11% from last year. Obviously, because the year before that, there wasn't a big to-do. There wasn't a lockdown. We heard of COVID, but people were still moving around and living their lives. Last year came around, knocked everyone on their ass. So those who were bothered by it. A lot of people weren't bothered by it, but there was a large percentage of people who were. So if there is a problem, if you are suffering from anxiety, depression, loneliness, you're angry all the time, you're going to have to figure out a way how to stop that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So suicides, guys, suicides went up. We all know that. We've read the stories. We've read the stories of kids being on lockdown. The 13-year-old kid, for example, last year, who's like, I guess a major story, who killed himself because of lockdown because he couldn't see his friends. There were numerous teenagers and grown men who killed themselves as well, and women because they weren't able to do what they normally do. There's a side of me that wants to talk, I guess bad, not bad, but talk some real talk about suicide. Because guys, I'm not gonna get into it in this video, but those people who committed suicide because they were lonely, because they didn't get to go outside, they didn't get to see their friends, there was something more there, right? I don't wanna sit there and be like, these people were perfectly mentally healthy and then all of a sudden they killed themselves. It doesn't work that way. There's always something there, and situations like this, the lockdown is the nudge. That's the push that they needed to do whatever they did. But you gotta keep this in mind. If some real shit was to happen, if the apocalypse was to happen, the shit's the fan scenario started going, this is pretty much it, started taking off, you're gonna see a lot of suicides. So these people had already killed themselves because of COVID, because they developed anxiety, because they developed depression, because they were unsure of where things were going to go, because they actually lost their friends. Friends stopped talking to them, friends stopped calling, and then they got depressed. And then again, they killed themselves because they couldn't deal with being home all the time. They lost their jobs. They didn't have an income coming in. They killed themselves. The darker side of lockdowns. Lockdowns have a further reach, guys, than I would venture to say COVID. So suicide, interestingly enough, all over the world was on the rise. Suicidal thoughts rose as well all over the world. It was a big problem, or it probably still is a big problem, guys. And so you have to be able to identify those who you think are going to off themselves, right? If somebody looks like they're about to fucking tie a noose around their neck and hang themselves, you should be able to identify that ahead of time. Again, a lot of it is identifying people who are about to suicide themselves. I'm sorry. People who are going to commit suicide, you can tell in their actions. They are withdrawn from people. They are talking about their self-worth as being none. They're questioning their existence. Like, why am I here? This is bullshit. You know, why do I have to deal with this? I don't have to deal with this anymore. When you start hearing that kind of talk, and there's also a look in the eyes, those two together are a match, and you know that this person is going to do something sooner or later. So those are the signs you need to pick up on to identify whether or not someone's going to kill themselves or they're just talking. The problem is with just talking is sometimes guys just talking can overnight turn into action. So even if they mention it, you have to talk to them. So again, guys, if you are having these problems, if you're having these suicidal thoughts, you can reach out to me at angryprepper@gmail.com if you want to talk. My email is always open. If it's that serious, I will give you my phone number and we'll talk on the phone. So CDC showed a 24% increase in mental health emergency room visits. That was up by 11% from the previous year, 2019. In adolescents aged 12 to 17, it went up 31%. So kids, guys, are also affected by this. And I don't give a fuck how many video games and toys they have. You still have to talk to your kids from time to time and check in on them. That's what we did. That's what we still do. We make sure that their mental health is doing good, if that makes sense. Drug use and drinking problems, guys, both of those went up. Both of those skyrocketed. We saw an increase in alcoholism and alcohol poisoning in the hospitals. You saw an increase in drug use and overdose in the hospital. These are things because people were bored. They were sitting there twiddling their thumbs saying, I need to do something. Heroin. Shoot that shit in my arm. You know what? I'm gonna fucking go to sleep with Jack Daniels tonight. Fucking lay myself out and get ossified with fucking liquor. Those increased dramatically last year. And I would assume another lockdown, guys, is going to bring the same effect, if not worse. Because this will be our second time around, and people do not want to suffer another lockdown. And I would almost venture to say that the talk of serious lockdown or definitive date of a lockdown is going to drive up the suicide rate right before that lockdown. Heavy drug use became a problem here in the United States, guys. We're talking about serious drugs like, you know, cocaine, heroin, meth. Those are the serious drugs. Weed, that's a light drug. That took an increase as well, but that's nothing. That's on the back burner. But the more serious shit took a fucking a rise, took a trip up, right? So again, heroin, methadone, cocaine. I don't know if people are still smoking crack. I think they are actually. So they are. I did see crack vials in the park a while ago. So Those are going up, guys. Those are becoming a problem. People are also taking personal medication and getting high off of that as well. So drug use definitely spiked. Drinking, well, most people drink to deal with, again, depression, anxiety, and loneliness. That's why they drink. So those three entered the fucking arena. People fucking bought into Jack Daniels with them into that arena to wash away those three. And that's why drinking went up, and we'll definitely see drinking go up again. Now, with drug abuse and drinking problems comes in domestic violence. Domestic violence, though, is part of the crime category. It's its own category because domestic violence skyrocketed last year. Skyrocketed. You had people who were getting drunk and high, beating their wives and their loved ones, their kids. Then you had people who were angry, anxious, and depressed and beat their loved ones and their kids because they were out of work. I'm not making money. I can't provide for my family. I'm gonna take my anger out on my family. So people, or women rather, were undoubtedly seeing an increase in domestic violence. I am pretty sure a lot of those hipster men were getting beat by their girlfriends as well, but they don't count. We're talking about women who are getting their asses handed to them by their husband. And in some cases, if they're lesbians, the brute of the relationship was beating the gentler woman, if you will, right? So we have those cases out there, and we've seen them, and they've been reported, guys. Domestic violence happens all the time, every second of the day. Just about every second of the day, sorry. So with that, guys, now you're talking about COVID, you're talking about a lockdown, you're bringing in drugs and alcohol, you're bringing in anger, depression, and anxiety, bringing all of these feelings in. And then you're bringing misplaced blame, which is a big one, because they're mad at what's going on. They're mad at the lockdown. They're mad at people fucking, telling them they can't work. And then they're taking it home and they're beating up on their loved ones. So domestic violence definitely skyrocketing. And that's something that needs to be addressed big time. Now, financial strain also caused domestic violence, drinking to go up, drug use, depression, anxiety, anger, suicidal thoughts. A lot of people were financially strained during this whole COVID shit, guys. There were people who lost their jobs and were never going to get it back. There were people who took a pay cut because now they're working from home. Financial strain is a big one because that is, guys, the basis of the American dream or living in America. Working, making money, and providing for your family. And when you take that away from people, guys, that financial strain turns into a lot of fucked up shit. So now, you are financially strapped. The government's not giving you enough to pay your rent or fucking your card note. And now you gotta sell your car because you can't afford it anymore. But now you gotta live in a fucking hut because you can't afford the apartment or home you were living in. Now that the eviction moratorium is coming to fruition, so they can only put that off for so long, guys. And then you're gonna see more people strapped, more people angry, more people on the fucking fringe of killing themselves or their fucking family or that murder-suicide shit that we hear about. Financial strain, guys, destroyed a lot of fucking businesses. Businesses closed down because they couldn't keep up with the lack of customers. Not that they couldn't keep up, they couldn't function with the lack of customers. They didn't have enough income coming in to sustain their store, and their store had to close down, and they had to lay off workers. People were, again, fired from their job because their job closed down. They were displaced from their job because they found another means of doing something. And those people are now out of work, creating a financial strain. Financial strain is huge because it also affects businesses, which affects the city as well, right? So another lockdown would be bad, and that would be the dark side of a lockdown as well, financial strain. Now, crime. Crime, guys, in a lockdown goes without saying. It spikes. It spiked all over America. You have people who are out of work, you have people who are looking for a way to make money. They're going to do some criminalistic shit. They're going to be out there fucking selling drugs. They're going to be out there selling their ass. Chicks and dudes too, guys. All right? They're going to be out there doing shit they didn't normally do to make ends meet. Crime is going to go up. And we're talking about smaller level crimes. Like prostitution in my book is a smaller level crime, right? Is it a serious crime? Not really. But nonetheless, it's a crime, right? Because I don't put that in the same book as murder or robbery. That's fucking serious crime. You're going to have people doing that shit. You're going to have people burglarizing stores. Now, burglary, again, that's a mid-level crime for me. Just because, again, guys, I lived in New York City. I know what fucking crime looks like. And yeah, burglary is stealing somebody else's shit, but they're not hurting anyone, if that makes sense. They're hurting that person financially, but not physically. So Again, burglaries are gonna go up. Now, I would rather someone burglarize a store than rob a guy in the street. Rob an old lady and knock her down a flight of stairs. I'd rather a guy burglarize a store, right? A lady selling her ass in the street, I'm not, for that, but I get it. Nonetheless, she's trying to make money. We're gonna see that go up as well. Then we're gonna be seeing people do some hard shit, all right? The push and robberies. The push and robberies are the worst because that's when you're home. And that's when a motherfucker kicks your door in, goes in there, fucking guns blazing, and takes your shit. Again, you're gonna look at burglary like, man, that's not bad. At least he took my shit while I wasn't here. Versus, he pushed the door in with this gun, pistol whipped me, tied me and the kids up, and took our shit in front of us. That's bad. And we have seen push and robberies from time to time here in the city, but you're definitely gonna see more of that because people are gonna go after the people they think have more than them. And that's what it comes down to. Oh man, that dude over there, that fucking Angryprepper, he's got more than us. Let's get some of his shit. I wish they fucking would. That's not the point. The point is, guy, crimes are gonna go up. Cars are gonna be stolen. They're breaking into cars now and stealing, I don't know what the fuck they're stealing from them. They're breaking into cars now. Cars are actually being stolen off the street. They are stripping tires off some stores, the tires and the rims, right? So we're seeing that. We're seeing muggings going on. So crime is going to spike and violent crimes are gonna spike. So this is the downside to fucking lockdowns. But politicians don't give a fuck about that. They don't give a fuck about you, myself, or anyone. They want to do what they think is going to do and they think is right and is not. Lockdowns are the death of society, guys. It just brings down everything. And we saw it last year. So the fact that they're talking about it is bad because that means they're disregarding what they saw last year. All right, guys, sorry for this long ass video. Other than that, man, this is the Angryprepper. Thank you for watching. You can like and subscribe to this channel. Follow me on all the shit in the description section below. See you guys in the next video.